Okay, you hear all the time, um, oftentimes if a rabbi doesn't know the source for something, like where do I look this up? Where does this come from? Is it the Mishnah? Is it in the Gemara? Is it the Mishnah Torah? Is this in the Shulchan Aruch? Where does this come from? If they don't know, they're like, it's Halachah LeMoshe miSinai. It's God told Moses. This has been passed down for every generation. Um, everything that I don't know where the source is that I can tell you to go read came from Mount Sinai. So Rambam, in his introduction to the Mishnah, he gives us a chapter on this. So we're going to read that. I don't have it on the computer where I could share screen, so I'll just have to read it out of the book. So the Talmud refers to certain laws as Halachah LeMoshe miSinai, accepted tradition received directly from Moshe at Sinai, and as such, not open to debate. You may wonder if all the explanations of the laws of the Torah were received from Moshe as we are taught, the general principles, the specifics, and the details of each law of the Torah were told on Mount Sinai, then in what way are the laws that are known as Halachah LeMoshe miSinai different than all other laws? Let me explain this elementary issue very clearly. In regard to the fact that tradition handed down from Moshe is accepted as reliable and not open for debate, there is no distinction between Halachah LeMoshe miSinai and other explanations handed down from Moshe. Therefore, there never existed an argument about the basic interpretation of the verses of the Torah. There never has arisen a dispute among authorities of any time or era, from Moshe until Rav Ashi, who finalized the Talmud, in which one sage would say that the phrase an eye for an eye should be taken literally, and another would say that the Torah is referring to monetary compensation. Likewise, there never arose a dispute over the meaning of the verse, on the first day you shall take the fruit of a hadar tree, whereby one said this fruit was an etrog, and the other said it referred to a quince, a pomegranate, or some other fruit. Nor have we come across an argument about the fact that branches of an avot tree refers to myrtle branches, or disagreement about the fact that you must cut off her hand is not to be taken literally, but means monetary compensation. Similarly, no one ever disputed the fact that the death sentence in the verse, if a Cohen's daughter defiles herself by acting promiscuously, she must be burned with fire, is carried out only if she was a married woman. In line with this, no one from Moshe until today has ever denied that the punishment of stoning for a girl who was found not to have been a virgin applied only if she was a married woman, and witnesses testified that after her betrothal, she committed adultery in their presence, and that they had warned her beforehand. There is no disagreement about these and similar commandments, because the explanations of all these laws were received from Moshe. It is with regard to such mitzvot that the sages said, the general outline and the specifics of the entire Torah were told on Sinai. However, although these explanations were received from Moshe and cannot be disputed, we can trace these explanations to the Torah text by means of the rules of Torah interpretation, through reasoning, comparisons, proofs, and allusions. When you find the sages in the Talmud disagreeing with one another, bringing proofs for any of these explanations or others like it, they are not arguing over the validity of the explanation, but rather how this explanation is derived from the text itself. For example, when they discuss the meaning of the term fruit of a hadar tree, some rabbis bring scriptural proof from the juxtaposition in the text of the words fruit and tree to indicate that it must be the fruit of a tree whose bark tastes the same as fruit, which is true of the etrog. Another sage finds a hint for the etrog in the word hadar, explaining that the word hadar can be interpreted to mean that dwells. It is a fruit that dwells in the tree from year to year, which can only be an etrog. A third sage, noting a kinship between hadar and the Greek hydor, meaning water, says that it is a fruit that grows on much water, an etrog. The rabbis did not bring these proofs because they were not sure of what the Torah meant by fruit of hadar until these hints were found. Of course, ever since the days of Yehoshua, Jews took lulav and an etrog in hand year after year. There was no quarrel about that. The rabbis merely searched for a hint in the Torah for this accepted tradition. The same is true for the proofs that the rabbis brought for the hadas, the myrtle branch, and their proofs for the law requiring monetary restitution for inflicting bodily injury, as well as their proof for the law concerning the death penalty for Cohen's daughter who had committed adultery. All proofs like these are meant to serve as scriptural allusions to well-known and long-established traditions. This is the meaning of the statement. The general outlines and the specifics were told on Sinai. In other words, those matters that can be drawn out from the text through the rule of a general statement limited by speculation, or through any of the other rules of interpretation, were handed down to us by Moses, who received them at Sinai. Although we received all these laws from Moshe, we do not call them Halachah LeMoshe miSinai, laws given to Moses on Sinai. You cannot say that the tradition of Peri Eitz Hadar means an etrog, or that the law that if someone wounds his fellow Jew, he must pay monetary compensation, are Halachah LeMoshe miSinai. Because although all these explanations came to us from Moshe, there are indications for them in the text, or they have been derived by logical analysis, as we have mentioned. Only those laws for which no hint or allusion can be found in Scripture and cannot be derived from the text means one of those methods of interpretation are termed Halachah LeMoshe miSinai. This is the reason why, when it was said that legal measurements are Halachah LeMoshe miSinai, the question was raised. How can you say that legal measurements are Halachah LeMoshe miSinai when legal measurements are alluded to in the verse? It's a land of wheat, barley, grapes, figs, and pomegranates, a land of oil, olives, honey, and dates. The answer was, legal measurements are indeed Halachah LeMoshe miSinai, and they cannot logically be derived from the verse. There is not even a suggestion for them anywhere in the Torah. The association of legal measurements with this verse is only a way to jog the memory and make it easier to remember them. It has nothing to do with the actual meaning of the verse. This is what the sages meant whenever they said, it is merely an asmakta, a mnemonic device. Now I will list most and possibly all of the laws that are termed Halachah LeMoshe miSinai. You will then realize what I said was correct, that not one of these laws has been derived from the Torah by means of logical reasoning, and that none of them can be related to a scriptural verse except as a way of jogging the memory. We do not find that the rabbis analyzed these laws or brought proofs from them for them. The rabbis learned from Moshe exactly as Hashem had instructed them. Okay, so it's here. Everybody's doing it. We don't see any proof from it. So therefore, it must have come from Moses because everyone is doing it, and we don't have a way where the judges have attributed this to the source. So he lists them here, and it is 30 items. The measurement of 1/2 log of oil needed to be mixed with the loaves, that are presented along with the Thanksgiving offering, the measurement of 1/4 log of oil needed for the loaves offered by a Nazir when the term of his Nazirite vow is complete, the law that there are 11 days between two Nida periods, the law that a wall is considered as being extended vertically under certain condition, the law that an empty space of less than 3 handbreadth wide, separating a solid surface, is considered a solid surface, the law that a ceiling may be considered as part of the wall from which it extends, minimum quantities, sizes, and measurements, definition of what constitutes a separation between one's body and the water of a mikvah, minimum dimensions of a partition, the parchment required for the tefillin, the parchment required for a mezuzah scroll, the parchment required for a Torah scroll, the form of the letter shin on the head tefillin, the formation of the knot on the straps of the head and the arm tefillin, the requirement of black straps for tefillin, the requirement for tefillin to be shaped like a cube, the requirement of a sleeve on the bases of the tefillin box through which the leather straps are pulled, the requirement that the parchments are tied in a roll with threads made from the hair of kosher animals before being placed on the tefillin boxes, the requirement that compartments of the tefillin be sewn together with the threads made from parts of kosher animals, the composition of the ink that must be used in writing a Torah scroll, the requirement that there be ruled guidelines etched above the lettering in a Torah scroll, the rule that a girl under the age of 3 years and 1 day retains her status of virginity despite cohabitation, the rule that the number of pia gifts from a field on which more than one kind of grain is growing depends on whether the different grains are stored together separately, the law that even a seed so fine that a small amount will suffice to plant an entire field has the same rule as other seeds insofar as the rule that they are considered insignificant in a mixture when there is less than 1/24th. Although in a standard field, the restriction of plowing begins prior to the actual Shemitah year. If the field contains at least 10 saplings, the entire field may be plowed up to the beginning of the Shemitah year. If a ring of figs is partly tameh, ritually unclean, one may give the full percentage of teruma due from both the tameh and the tahor parts, the tahor part alone. On Shabbat, the teacher may find the place by lamplight from which the students are to begin reading. A woman must bring a sin offering even if she carries an object in her apron on Shabbat, even if she placed the object in front of her apron and it inadvertently moved to her back. The right of a wine seller to mix strong wine into his soft wine without being guilty by deception, since he is improving the product. The law that Jews living in Ammon and Moab must give a tithe for the needy in the 7th year. Whenever we will come across one of these laws in our commentary on the Mishnah, we will elaborate on it with God's help. So these are the 30 laws, according to Rambam, that were given at Mount Sinai. Notice one of them not listed there was this midrash, this folklore and legend, that we're commanded to go out and tell people that they need to follow these 7 Noahide laws or be executed for it. That is a matter of law. And this he does not list as something that's Halachah LeMoshe miSinai, which is why when he gives us the halacha on how to do conversions, it is not mentioned there that we offer this as an alternative to conversion to Judaism. So you've heard everybody say, well, the oral law, everything was given at Mount, the whole Gemara, the whole Talmud, everything was given at Mount Sinai. Not according to Rambam. So let's go back to screen sharing. I think I closed the window, but we should be able to pull it back up. How do I see my last tab here? Pull up Safari.
Mikhail.
Let's go back and find it. Okay. We're looking for Halachah, Mishnah Torah. Now looking for Hilchot Mamrim, which tells you how Halachah functions. As I was mentioning earlier, the reason most people don't know this is because they read the Shulchan Aruch, which only deals with stuff in the diaspora. So it doesn't cover the Sanhedrin. So this is why most rabbis can't tell you how it functions. You ask 10 different rabbis, they give you 10 different explanations, and they all say the same thing. You have to ask your local rabbi, who will then tell you minhagim in their community and try and pass off minhag as halakha. And that's not how it functions. So in Sefer Shoftim, this is the last book in Mishnah Torah. You look up Hilchot Mamrim, laws of rebellious elders. English translation here is under rebels. Chapter 1, Halakha 1. The Supreme Sanhedrin in Jerusalem are the essence of the oral law. The Sanhedrin, these are the people, the Tanaim, the people that had smicha going back to Moshe Rabbeinu, that chain of transmission from Moshe all the way to where it ended is in Pirkei Avot. So these are the people that sat on the Sanhedrin. That is the essence of the oral law. They are the pillars of instruction for whom the statutes and judgments issue forth for the entire Jewish people. That's the difference between halakha, which is binding on the entire Jewish people, and minhagim, custom and tradition, which is only binding on the local community who agrees to accept that minhag. It's not binding on any other community in the same town, in the same generation. Halakha, on the other hand, rulings from the Sanhedrin is binding on the entire Jewish people. Concerning them, the Torah promises, this is not speculation, this is not theory, we're quoting the actual Torah commandment here. You shall do according to the laws which they shall instruct you. This is a positive commandment. Whoever believes in Moses and his Torah is obligated to make all of his religious acts dependent on this court and to rely on them. If you believe the Torah is true and the God, according to the Torah, gave this commandment to Moses in the Torah that you should follow the rulings of this court, then you should make all of your religious acts dependent on this court and to rely on them. You should be converting, you should be following halakha, you should be doing everything that this court instructs, just like every Jew who is following this Torah commandment is supposed to be doing what this court instructs. You should not be following a new religion saying, well, I'm going to cherry pick a couple of those commandments, maybe 7 of them, and I'm going to follow those. That's going to be my religion. If you believe the Torah is true, then you should be following the Torah, which gives you this instruction. Let's go on to the next one. Any person who does not carry out their directives transgresses a negative commandment. This is the mitzvah of lo tasor. Do not stray to the left or the right of the rulings of the court. Do not deviate from any of the statements they relate to you, neither left or right. Lashes are not given for the violation of the prohibition because it also serves as a warning for transgression punishable by execution by the court. For when a sage rebels against the words of the court, he should be executed by strangulation, following the verse, a person who will act deliberately. We are obligated to heed their words, whether they are learned from the oral tradition, the oral law, derived from the basis of their own knowledge through one of the attributes of biblical exegesis, as it appeared to them. This is the correct interpretation of the matter. This is what the Sanhedrin would do. They would debate these things. They would cite different proof texts, this passage from the Torah, this passage, and then they would vote. Instituted as a matter of safeguard for the Torah, as was necessary at a specific time. These are the decrees, the edicts, and the customs instituted by the sages, not just any rabbis, the actual sages that sat on the Sanhedrin. They had the authority to make halakha, which is different from minhagim. Local rabbis today can create minhagim. They cannot create these types of decrees that's binding on the entire Jewish people. Only the Sanhedrin can do that. It's a positive commandment to heed the court with regard to each of these three matters. A person who transgresses any of these types of directives transgresses against a negative commandment. This is derived from a continuation of the above verse in the following manners. According to all the laws which they shall instruct you, not this YouTube rabbi and that rabbi, the next town over who I met once, according to the laws that they, the judges who had smicha, that's what gave them the authority to judge, who sat on the Sanhedrin. They had the authority to instruct. This refers to the edicts, decrees, and customs which they instruct people at large to observe, to strengthen the faith, and perfect the world, according to the judgment which they relate. This refers to the matters which they derive through logical analysis, employing one of the methods of biblical exegesis. From all the things that they will tell you, again, they who were on the Sanhedrin, this refers to the tradition which they received from one person to another. So if you want to know how halakha functions, this is where you find it. Mishnah Torah, Sefer Shoftim, Hilchot Mamrim. And if you want to call it Halachah LeMoshe miSinai, well, this was given to Moses at Mount Sinai. Which one of the 30 items is it? Because Rambam lists them. Okay, I'm going to leave it here because we are not going to put this public on the internet. So I'm going to upload this as unlisted so I could share the link with all of you that are watching it. And there's things in there. Obviously, we don't need Gentiles. Oh, look at this. It was a law given by God. Look what it says here about this child. So we don't need to make that public. So if you have any questions about it, just I'm sharing it to you so you know how to get a hold of me. So just reach out to me.
Word.